So, looking at Champlain was but Ingham decided to have leadership and Saturday,
But first to Brooklyn Center, where it is 11 p.m. local and
oh
hour
boy,
past
what is
curfew,
that?
and another night of confrontation between law enforcement and
What's
activists
that
turning out
mess
in
up?
force, despite the county's decision to arrest and criminally charge veteran officer Kim Potter with second-degree manslaughter in the death of Dante Wright. Senior correspondent Mike Tobin joins us once again live there on the ground. Hey, Mike.
And Shannon, we're going to be a very different look tonight, and that is because we're outside of a perimeter that has been established by law enforcement with the Brooklyn Center Police Department about a quarter-mile behind me now. What they've done, what troopers calling this an encirclement. Essentially, they have corralled all of the people who were at the center of the demonstrations, and they moved in from both sides, arresting anyone they could get their hands on, ordering a lot of people on the ground, but it also had the effect of scattering the demonstrators who were there. We're getting word now that some of them gathered nearby in a small church parking lot. As far as how the demonstrations went, we had about half as many people as showed up last night, and then the patterns really were somewhat usual. You had the back and forth with the police, the projectiles being thrown over the crowds at the riot cops, the cops responding mostly tonight with pepper spray and pepper balls fired out of those, they're almost like paintball guns that they were using, and a lot of personnel holding that fence in place that is now been erected around the police department in Brooklyn Center. This coming on a day when Kimberly Potter, the police officer at the center, has been arrested, booked in jail, and charged. The charge is second-degree manslaughter, carrying a potential penalty of 10 years in prison and a $20,000 fine. She is bonded out. Her initial appearance is tomorrow, and we're looking at a scene now that is somewhat controlled here with the police encircling the troubled area. Arrests are underway right now. Shannon?
What was that?
Sounds like early and more forceful enforcement tonight. Mike, we'll check back with you. Please keep us updated.
Got it.
And Fox News correspondent Lauren Blanchard and her crew getting an up-close and personal look at the very heavy law enforcement presence in Brooklyn Center tonight. And Lauren, I know at one point you all were caught up in what the police are trying to do in enforcing that curfew and checking the area. What
Not only was that show is a very patronizing.
Yeah, Shannon, so as my crew and I were trying to leave the area, basically the police came in from almost every side, just as Mike was describing, encircling the area. As we were trying to make our way out with the cars, police stopped everyone trying to get out of there. We were ordered out of our cars, onto our knees, onto the ground, had to have our hands up. Thankfully, I was able to record some of it. Police, I mean, the overwhelming number of law enforcement National Guard troops that were there, I haven't seen anything like it in the last few days. So they're really coming out much stronger in order to basically round up anyone who is still left there this evening. It took about 5 or so minutes checking IDs, taking photo of our press credentials before we were allowed to get up back into our car and then make our way through about 3 or so levels of security to get our cars out of that area. We were told we just had to go and get out of there, and we had no other direction. We just had to move forward, but they were really being serious about taking anyone that they could see, getting them onto the ground, going over, checking who they were, and of course, as Mike was mentioning, arresting anyone who was still there. Obviously, a little bit of a scary situation for my crew and I. The curfew that was in place was supposed to exempt media from this. Thankfully, we weren't allowed to leave once they verified who we were, but a number of other crews also caught up in there. Other security details caught up in there. A very intense situation once the National Guard and police moved in.
Yeah, that curfew not being as lightly observed as it was last night. It sounds like tonight in new business. Lauren, we're glad that you guys are safe and sound. We know you're busy on there covering the story there on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen.
For a clearer perspective of what transpired when they faithfully crossed paths on Sunday, it's helpful to learn more about Kim Potter, now the former officer, and Dante Wright, who lost his life. Correspondent Alex Hogan has that side of the story tonight. Good evening, Alex.
This is real,
Hi, Shannon. A closer look at the stories of both people involved.
administration,
Dante
they like to
Wright
call it
had
now.
previous
They
encounters with
spin on
police activists say there is simply
administration on
no
what it is.
excuse for
A
firing a
left
legal
idea
president.
of like saying,
Court papers from 2019 detail an attempted armed robbery by Dante Wright and a high school acquaintance, Emma J. Maurice Driver. The two allegedly attempting to steal $820, a woman's rent money. Quote, defendant Wright placed his hand around victim's neck and choked her while trying to pull the cash out from under her bra. Victim was able to get loose from defendant Wright and started to kneel down and scream. In June of 2020, according to records, officers charged the 20-year-old with carrying a pistol without a permit and fleeing police. Then during a traffic violation this past weekend, officers discovered the warrant for his arrest. After being pulled over for an expired car registration, Wright called his mom about insurance information. It's the last time she would ever hear from him.
My son was laying there, unresponsive. That was the last time that I seen my son.
Protests erupting in Minnesota, echoing calls for justice in the name of Daunte Wright. Metal fencing going up around the home of the former officer who fired her gun instead of a taser. Kim Potter faces charges of second-degree manslaughter. The married mother has 2 adult sons and served more than 2 decades on the police force. Just 2 years ago, the 48-year-old was one of the first to arrive at the scene of another officer-involved shooting. Police in 2019 shot a 21-year-old man 6 times after he lunged at police with a knife. Potter, the former head of the police union, resigned on Tuesday, along with the now former police chief.
Kim Potter is out of jail tonight after posting a $100,000
Her?
bond.
She look like that.
Alex Hogan, thank you very much. Law enforcement officers across the country are monitoring their communities tonight for any signs of unrest, and there has been some in recent days. This all in the wake of recent events in Minnesota this time. Correspondent Jeff Paul is tracking the very latest for us tonight. Good evening, Jeff.
Yeah, Shannon, right now we're keeping our eye on a few cities around the country. It seems like it's been mostly calm and the most calm events the past few days. But just last night, things got out of hand in Columbus, Ohio, when a group of protesters broke through locked doors